Hey, everybody. This is Geeks from the Multiverse podcast. As always, this is John, and with me is my buddy Matt
What's up, everybody?
and our good friend Greg Lesko.
Guess who's back? Back
Okay.
again.
Oh, God. Please don't. Please don't. We're not going to
I'm leaving it at that.
Okay, good. So, since from last week, right? So, we just talked about villains, and this week we're going to be talking about music and different instruments, for example, that have changed in, I would say, the culture of music, right? So, like things that are different in, the electronic based instruments and different kind of weird, wacky instruments, and just in general, right? So, like geeky things that have changed music as itself, and we're gonna kind of dive into, maybe like different genres of music that maybe we're all listening to, or different maybe experiences that we have in music in general. Because I know Greg, our good friend over here, has played multiple different instruments, and so I'd be curious to hear, how he got into it, and kind of go dive in that into a little bit as well. But yes, mostly this is a music based episode, so it's a variety of different things. But I know that we don't have news this week, Matt.
No, but I do have, a question that I wanted to pose to all of you.
Oh,
And I only really kind of thought of the question because I've started listening to this band on Spotify, and it kind of spawned this question. And it's, what are you listening to currently? So the band that I'm listening to is called Galactic Empire, and they are a metal cover band that does covers of Star Wars music.
hmm. Okay, a little different, yeah.
So they have covers of the Mandalorian theme. They've recently just did the Bad Batch theme, but they have a whole album ranging from the Cantina song to Duel of the Fates. Basically, whole genre of Star Wars theme songs.
That takes some talent right there. Do all of that.
Yeah, and when it comes to listening to, and I'm very much into like the metal genre. I'm very much a metal snob, and when it comes to certain types of metal, like there definitely is like good metal and terrible metal. And when you're listening to cover bands, like most of them are usually pretty terrible when it comes to doing covers. But this band is actually like what they're doing as far as making these like Star Wars covers are really, really good. So if you haven't like checked them out, they're on Spotify. Just like search Galactic Empire, and you'll see them pop up. They are really, really good.
I feel like they should take the back of your car and like put that as an album cover. I really think they should. I mean, I really think they should just take a photo and just be like, "Here you go, here's an album cover," and base it just on that. Whatever it may be.
Actually, somebody on the Everett passed me, and their license plate was Sith Lord, and I was like,
Ooh.
okay, that's fitting.
So, Greg, what do you listen to now?
Well, I'm kind of all over the place with what I listen to. My main band that I love is 311, but I'm not always listening to them. Currently, right now, I'm in a like 40s big band swing phase. Yeah,
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's a stretch.
yeah. I'll be driving to work. Namely, I listen to the Modernaires. They're like a vocal group from around that time. They performed with Glenn Miller Orchestra, and it's pretty much exactly like how you picture 40s and 50s music. Is that with the harmonizing vocals and just full band and everything like that. It's to me it's super relaxing. It can be upbeat, it can be slower, but it's all relaxing to me. I just love the aesthetic of it too, like how the sound quality, how it's so raw and just old school basically. So that's that's my playlist. It's a lot of times that's my go-to playlist just when I want to mellow out, which is kind of funny because other people are just like, "Oh, I'll listen to, whatever to mellow out." And nope, that's my go-to. I get real relaxed from it. Takes me away to another time, a better time that I didn't get to live in.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to go back to the 40s and 50s just to see what it was like, but
Yep.
um, yeah, I'm not going to be that interesting, man. I'm going to be honest with you. A lot of what I listen to is, um, I would say more like EDM or like electronic or techno, whatever, depending on what the day is. But a lot of it I've noticed with some of the newer ones that they're coming out with is like they'll like remix a song to like How to Save a Life or like something random like that, from the fray. But like they'll do it and then they'll like make it like doom doom doom, like they'll make it like really upbeat, and I'm like, this song is depressing. Why, like, why are you making an upbeat song? Like, but it's interesting to see how
It's for the club, John. For the club.
and you're like, wait a minute, whoa, wait, like, hey, that's a How to Save a Life, doom, 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 like, I don't know, but it's random. It's interesting because I love how with EDM and whatnot, they'll take songs that are totally random. Like it didn't matter where it came from. It could have been 40s. It could be wherever, and they'll just like put a beat into it, like doom, 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 and like get into it, and then you're like, wow, like this is really good, or it's
Wow, I didn't know Celine Dion had this kind of.
no, I agree. It's weird because I don't know. It's a different style. It's a different things, but I mean, it's tough because a lot of the music nowadays is not what it should be, right? Because if you go back in the, let's say, I don't know, depending on what genre of music, like early 2000s, 90s, 80s, go back even further, like they had legit songs, they had meaning, they had all this stuff. Nowadays, it's like, I don't know, like some of the like I'll say this as an example, but like mumble rappers, okay, they'll just be like
Ugh.
him and the home the whoo, and then they go into it, and then you're like, and they're just like doom doom da boom boom, and it's just
And the
like
funny part about it is, they probably have 12 writers writing that song.
I know. So the worst part is like my favorite thing is when they use the names of like so they have like Little Peep, Little Uzi Vert, Little this, Little that, Little. I'm like, can you make up a new name besides Little? You ain't that little, man. Like there's Lil Wayne, right? There's Lil John, yeah. There's like there's those guys. They have those names, but you have Lil Peep. Okay, what's up, Lil Peep? It's stupid to me. Like, why don't you make an actual name that makes sense, right? Or make something that means something to you. You know, that's why a lot of the rappers or a lot of the like artists and stuff are like, yeah, I'm the peace symbol. Like, what? Like, that's your name is the peace symbol? I mean, I understand Prince did that, but I mean, not the peace symbol, but he made his own symbol. But it doesn't make any sense when you have, these people like, yeah, my name's Dew, bro. You're like, okay, what do you talk about? Like Mountain Dew, baby. You're like, like I don't understand this. Like, that doesn't make any
Oh,
sense.
so they're extreme.
The extreme Mountain Dew, baby. But so I guess really what I'm trying to say is like I like a lot of different stuff. So like, yes, my dad, for example, growing up, sorry, we would listen to a lot of like heavy like 70s, right? So you have like AC/DC, you'd have like Meatloaf, you'd have like
Like the classic rock.
oh yeah, classic
Yeah.
rock and stuff like that. And then so of course as I got older a little bit, we'd listen to like country, certain 90s country, like some of that, right? And so actually for a long time I hated country because that's all they would play, and there was nothing else that they wanted to listen to. And so I was like, I need to grow up and I need to figure out what music is. And so I would look around and I would be like, yeah, I'll admit. Okay, I was that white kid who loved Eminem. Okay, you know what? So be it. I did. I think some people might agree, whatever. So you'd listen to it, and you'd have like different music and whatnot, and you grow up and you kind of learn what the culture was at that time, right? So, for me, like early 2000s and stuff like that. So like, now looking back at, I remember Lou Bega, right? It's a very random one, but Mambo Number Five. Okay, when you hear the song as a kid, you're like, oh yeah, na, 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 like you're listening to it and it's like it's great, and then all of a sudden as you get older, you're like, wait, this guy was talking about what? Like he was talking about multiple women and like how he has multiple relationships and stuff like that, and I'm like, what did I listen to? Like
Yeah.
this doesn't make any sense, but you know what I mean. But like I think for me it's more eclectic. So if some people were like, hey, you should try to listen to this, okay, I'm game. Like you tell me. Like I'll listen to Galactic Empire. I'd be even listening, to your, 40s band. That's fine. But at the end of the day, the one thing I don't like is that sad country, like my dog died the other day, and and like I lost my job, and like no man, I don't need that. Like there's got to be tempo. There's got to be something. There's got to be meaning. I feel like that's what it is meaning, and actually has like a good beat to go along with the actual song, and that's hard to do nowadays. You know
Yeah,
what
I
I mean?
could I could never get into country myself. I mean, I've always been, even though yes, I was born in '79, but going through the '80s, I was only like, 1 through 10. So music to me wasn't a real thing. But I could say in the '90s, for me, like '90s alternative, grunge, like that's my thing. Like
Oh
that
yeah.
I
that's
mean,
where I'm
Kurt
at.
Cobain and
Kurt Cobain, like Foo Fighters, like that's where I'm at. And I have like a 4-hour playlist
you mean Nine
of
Inch
all
Nails?
these like alternative, you know, basically it's my sing along playlist. It's got
Oh, it's not the Disney sing-alongs.
no.
Follow the bouncing Mickey ears.
Unlike my Spotify, John, I don't
Oh.
have a Justin Bieber sing along
Okay,
playlist.
you know what? I do not have one. I want to repeat that for the record. Stay on the record. I do not have a Justin Bieber playlist because
Oh, you're not a believer?
it seems like you are because you keep talking about him. I don't talk about him.
Hey, it's okay, John.
No, Matt.
It's
I
okay.
just I don't. I'm not a believer, man. I
okay to-
don't do that.
It's okay to admit that you're a believer, John.
Well, it's funny because you talked about the sad country music, and it reminded me of a meme that I saw. It was just like, oh, with all the self-driving vehicles out now, sooner country artists are going to be talking about how their truck ran away from them.
So I'm just gonna mention this real quick, but my mother, I love her to death, but there was one song, and it was literally her ringtone, and whenever she like it was an alarm clock basically, and it would go, it was like I'm something like you love with me, and it was just like something about Tennessee, and it was just like it was constant. So literally every morning, I would go into a room and shut it off for her because sometimes she didn't get up, and I'm like, change it, or I'm going to throw your phone at the friggin' window because it was so annoying. And again, I love her to death, but there was so many times where, like you understand, like how there's like always new songs. You're like, oh, I gotta repeat that. Like, if you ever like feel like I had to repeat it,
Yeah.
she would do it to the extreme, and I mean like her favorite song I remember was at the time when I showed her this was it was Tayo Cruz, and it was I think it was I think it was Break Your Heart or something along the lines of that. I can't remember the exact song name off the top of my head, but she'll know. But she would play that constantly and like repeat it, repeat it. I'm like, there's only so much I want to listen to in this car with you, especially, right? And I think another one was like Carpenters. Okay, I understand it was like, very mellow, it's nice, I listened to it with her, but again, it was almost constant to the degree of that's all we listened to. And I would be like, let's turn it to the radio. Let's do something else. Like, I can't do this anymore. But I agree. I think music in general is depending on the era, right? So, like, you always have, like your 70s, like, there's great rock, there's great maybe blues or, whatever it may have been, during that time. And then, like, you got 80s, like, yeah, you got the heavy, hair metal or the hair bands and, all the pop and all the, that stuff. And the 90s, it was like, yeah, you got rap, you got, grunge, you got all, kinds of
Dr.
different-
Dre and Snoop Dogg.
Snoop.
There
Oh,
it is.
okay. Sorry. but it was one of those things like every era had their own style of music, and it was nice and it was different. Nowadays, I don't know what the heck it is.
Yeah,
And I couldn't tell you what it is, and I don't know. Even though that you keep saying, "Oh, you're just a baby," as you like to call me. Um, I don't know, Matt. I don't. I'm really out. I'm literally not in tune with this culture. I am so out of it that I don't even like to listen to certain music because I don't know what it's about. Like I said, when the mumble rappers start talking, I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, literally, it's like taking Ozzy Osbourne and like making him like, yeah. I was like, I don't know what you're talking
Boomhauer. Ozzy
Yes,
and Boomhauer.
yes. But anyways, I know we got some musical instruments that we want to talk about.
We do. So some crazy, I guess they're not really that crazy, but when you do kind of look at them and you're seeing them maybe for the first time, you could kind of look at them and go, how could anybody play that thing? Those are kind of the instruments that, I have a couple on my list. The very first one is an instrument called the Chapman stick. And I'm sure for most people, you're kind of like, what the heck is that?
I'm like, what the heck is that? Because I'm like the Chapman, like I'm thinking like chapstick, and then you just add man to the chap. It's like,
So this is a
Chapman stick.
musical instrument created by an individual named Emmett Chapman in the early 1970s.
oh, I'm sorry. So of course he had to name it of himself, but
Well, of
anyways.
course. So this is a member of the guitar family,
Oh,
and the Chapman stick is usually has 10 or 12 individual strings. You can use it to play bass lines, melody lines, chords, or textures.
hmm. I
Uh,
honestly don't know what that means, but it's okay, and I don't need to know.
so um, you can use this. They call it polyphonic, which is having two or more voice tones.
Okay.
Um, which the 10 or 12 strings on the Chapman stick um, is you basically, if you look at a guitar,
Yeah.
you have 6 strings, or a bass has 4 or 5 or more depending on the bass that you get. But generally bass have 4
Right.
and
Yep.
guitars have 6. If you put those two together, that's what you're looking at as far as a Chapman stick.
So 10 strings.
10 strings, or if you have 12, then you're looking at having the 6 for your guitar, and then your 6 for your bass.
Oh, so you could literally go from like high to low at any point. So you could even do both at the same time, and it would
Right,
kind of mix
and
in.
the Chapman stick also doesn't have the same type of head or body that a regular guitar has. So when you look at a guitar, it has the really wide body, with like the bridge and the pickups and all that other stuff.
Yep.
The Chapman stick is literally just the neck. So it's
Okay.
it's a long neck. You actually play it at like a 40-degree angle, and you don't strum it. You play it with what they call hammer on. So you're just tapping on it.
Did you ever play Guitar Hero?
Yes, I have played. Yeah, so you're talking like
You know where you have to just push the buttons up here and
Well,
not the strum pattern?
yeah. So
That's your hammer-ons and pull-offs.
okay. I got you. So see, that's a great example. See, like I wouldn't have known. I'm like, okay, hold on.
Yeah.
Da-da-da-da-da, like tapping, like that's what I would have thought. Like, what are we talking about here? But
And I can't believe I just used that example. I can't stand that game.
he's like, I want the real thing, dude.
That's my thing. I
Well-
always had to have the real thing.
Well, I think Rock Band did a pretty. I thought. Well, I mean, right? Because they did do like actual, electronic, I guess, instruments. But I thought they had like actual strings and stuff with it. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
No,
Or
I
was
mean
it-
it was
was it-
just like a
Well,
It was
I mean,
that strum thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, well, so no, Guitar Hero, yes, that was notorious for the, the red, green, blue, whatever, right? But Rock Band, I think, kind of like jumped up a little bit, and I swore that they had like an actual like almost as maybe not quite like a guitar, but at least close to it. It wasn't actually like the actual like buttons you'd be pressing. I thought it was like actually like maybe strings. Maybe I'm wrong because I never had it because it was always too expensive because it was always more. But anyways, that's another
Well,
story.
it definitely had a better drum kit.
I mean, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but the Chapman stick, so it has, the strings of a guitar, the strings of a bass, and you wouldn't necessarily play it the same way as you would a guitar or a bass because you're not strumming. You would play, melody lines. You could play bass lines. You could play the same type of chords. You're just not strumming.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it does take a lot of skill to learn how to play this, and it like a guitar, it can be tuned the same way. Although most of the Chapman sticks are tuned, I believe, in fourths. Um, But it's a really interesting instrument, and if you ever want to YouTube it, just YouTube Chapman Stick. There's a lot of really cool videos of professionals actually playing these.
I'm curious, man. Would you ever want to play one?
I think it's interesting. I would be interested in learning,
Well,
but it's one of those instruments. It's like you don't just pick it up and start kind of like it. It
yeah,
would take a little bit to because you have to kind of separate because playing bass and playing guitar, there are two separate things that bass players do that guitar players do, like don't do, and it's vice versa.
so the reason why I'm asking is because I know you play bass, right? But
Yeah.
but would you be able to establish between the two to be able to play it, more effectively? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like differentiating that.
it's very tricky because playing a Chapman stick, and I've actually known one person who can play it, and I've actually played with this person. This was years ago, but we played at a Londonderry Old Home Days
Oh,
where
okay. Yep.
where he played the Chapman stick,
Oh,
and
okay.
he was amazing. Um, but it's one of those things where if you're playing a bass line, you have to play that bass line along with a melody line at the same time. And
Yeah.
that's where it can get complicating because you have to think about what you're doing as a bass line on top of the melody line, which are two separate things. It's sort of almost like if you think of drumming,
Yeah. Yep.
each hand, your feet are doing completely separate things. And you have to, I mean, it's muscle memory. So after a time, yes, playing the Chapman stick would just be like muscle memory, but it's separating that complete thing where you have a complete range of voice tones that you can go from the top to the bottom,
Yeah.
and no matter like what key or what range that you want to play, you can go as low as you need to or as high as you want to. You can do lead lines with this thing. You can harmonize with other guitars. You can play as a piano if you wanted to. Like
That's kind of what I was thinking was the way you're saying, do bass line with one hand and do like melody lines and stuff like that with the other. It's kind of like a piano. It's kind of like, you
it's
do your
just
bass lines
yeah.
with one hand and then you do your other stuff with the other hand.
It's very much like a stringed piano. Very much.
Mm. Okay. Well, unfortunately, I don't play any of those instruments. So, I mean, the only thing I could agree with Greg is like I played a little bit of drums, right? So, like if we talked about drums, then maybe I was like, okay, yeah, I can get behind that. But playing like string instruments, wind instruments, whatever. Yeah, no, you couldn't catch me like playing a flute because I can't do that, man. Like if you tried, I'm not doing it. Sorry.
All right, so some of the technical, I'll go into some of the technical things with the Chapman stick. So it does have both active and passive pickups, which passive means that they're not powered. Active means that there's power, like usually there's a battery involved
Oh, okay.
where you would flip a switch and they would turn on.
Hmm.
They do use dual quarter-inch plugs. So in order to plug into an amp, you would have to have
Like a splitter or something.
a splitter because you would have two outputs
Hmm.
that would go because you would have two pickups. So you would have a splitter that would go two quarter-inch plugs out into one and then into your amp. Because it's like bass and then your melody. So that's why there's two.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So it's because of the strings and the different tones that you get. The back of the neck is not curved like a guitar. So it has different grooves, but like a guitar, most necks are curved,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that your hand can fit around them. This one's not curved, but it has grooves so that your thumb can fit into particular spots.
I thought you were going to say it's because it's groovy. Oh,
Oh, dad joke.
that jokes for
Oh,
days.
worst joke of the year. No.
Yep.
And playing it, there is a strap that would hook like at the top and then down at the body, so you could strap it at 40 degrees. Again, like I said, there's no strumming or plucking. It's hammer-ons. Tuning is different than a guitar. But there's a greater range of octaves with the Chapman stick, which makes it a pretty versatile instrument as far as playing in a band. Just takes a whole lot of skill to learn and master.
So I feel like when this guy was like he's like, you know what? I'm gonna be a one man guitar, bass guy, and I'm sitting there like, it's cool that the guy wanted to, create something like this, but I mean, yes, if you're just, let's say you don't have a guitar player and you also need a bass player, like that's great. Maybe if this guy knows how to play both, but really, really, like, come on. I think you could try to find a guitar player and a bass player separately. You know what I mean? It's cool that you could do both, but I just feel like the necessary use behind this instrument is very few far in between, depending on like the band and stuff like that. That's just me. That's just looking at it a perspective, right? Because I mean, I understand that maybe you might have a guitar player, but like, well, I need.
Yeah,
This.
but I mean, it's really in the way that it's played, because if you're like I would say I'm a pretty normal bass player. I'm not playing with hammer-ons. I'm plucking the strings with my fingers, which gives a different type of tone.
Okay. Yeah.
If Greg was playing guitar, he's also strumming. He's not going to be playing with hammer-ons, although there might be songs where hammer-ons are needed. But for the most part, he's not playing with hammer-ons. So I think the stick gives a different type of tone. And you could because of the amount of octaves that there can be, you're giving a different kind of tone. So I can see that there could be potential for a lot of places within the band to, whether you're doing harmonizing between the bass player and the guitar player, or you're doing, more lead lines, because with the Chapman stick, like you're doing hammer-ons, there you could potentially do all the lead lines, where if you just had a guy that only knew how to really play rhythm guitar, the Chapman stick would be perfect for lead lines.
The only reason I'm asking is because, like, reality is like, how popular is this instrument? Like, I feel like you said you've only met one person.
I've only known one person, but I'm also not a professional musician.
Well, yes,
but
right.
In professional, music, it's not a popular instrument.
Okay. Well, I mean, and maybe that could change, right? Maybe down the road, maybe if they create a new genre, right, with this particular instrument, there you go. You just created something. Hopefully, that's better than what we're listening to nowadays. But yeah.
But I would tell you, just go YouTube it. It's called the Chapman stick. Some of the videos are really, really cool, especially when you see some of the videos, there's like two people playing it at the same time. Like, they're really, really cool. But it is a cool instrument. Really, really expensive, way out of my price range. But
just out of curiosity, what would be one that's, let's say, used?
Well, brand new, that I think they pretty much are like $2,500. Brand new. So used, I would say if you go any less than probably about $1,000, you're probably not getting a good deal.
Okay, so
You're getting the stick with no strings.
you're getting the body. You're not getting everything
the
else.
stick.
Yeah, probably.
So what was the other thing, Matt? Because I was looking at that too.
Actually, actually, you mentioned that, and it made me think of one. A lap steel guitar. I think those things have the coolest sound of. You look that up on YouTube. There's a group, actually. A guy plays that, and it's Robert Randolph, and he's amazing. And I just think it's cool. It's like you're looking like you're sitting at a desk or whatever, and you got one hand moving around on the fretboard, and the other one, that's where you're playing the actual strings, and they just have such a cool tone to them. And he actually plays it like with distortion, so it comes out sounding really, really cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one to look up, is Robert Randolph and the Family Band.
Okay. All right.
There's actually another one I was thinking.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
This is the problem when you have two people that play music. We just think of these things. There's a group that I was listening to. there's actually a couple Mongolian metal groups.
Okay. I think I know what you're talking about, but yeah.
And for the most part, like they do this interesting thing, and that's not the instrument I'm talking about, but they do this interesting thing where they do throat singing,
Yes.
but that's actually not what I'm talking about. But
No,
but
of course you're not.
the throat singing thing is interesting.
Yes.
But if you look at the instruments they're playing,
They're actually, aren't they traditional?
they're traditional, and most of them only have 2 strings. And when you're actually looking at them, like they're very traditional guitars, they have 2 strings, and you're like, well, that would make it really perfect. Like there's only 2 strings, that'd be easy to play. The sound that they come out with is so phenomenal sounding.
Well, it's almost like because aren't they, it's like they're almost sliding their fingers as well as once they pluck it, they're like sliding it to make that different tone, right? If I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
and then one of them's using like an actual bow.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, and I think one of the bands is New and You or Hugh.
Yeah, they're like, I think I know what you're talking about. It was a song that came out like a couple years ago. I
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
And all the guitars I think are different. I think like one's blue, one's red. And they have like these crazy looking dragons on the headstock. But they're just really cool sounding.
Because if I'm not mistaken, like all of them, so like there's one main guy that's like the throat singing, and then everyone else kind of like it's almost like they harmonize a little bit, and they almost also do the throat singing, but they're also kind of like humming.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's kind of weird, but I believe it's interesting too that
The Hugh.
was it the Hue?
The Hugh, yeah.
Didn't they? Because I'm pretty sure they used drums too, but it wasn't like they were like actual. I don't even know what to call them. Like the big, like circle drums that are like you could place on the ground and just like start. I think I know. I think maybe you'll know what I'm talking about, Greg. Maybe a little bit here.
Can you mime that again? Because
Like
that was kind of
boom,
funny.
boom, like the like, not like marching band, but like the big drums and then they're like using the. It's gonna sound weird, but yes, like a stick with what looks like a cotton ball, but it's not really a cotton ball.
A mallet.
Is it called a mallet? Okay, sure. We'll call it a mallet because I didn't know that's the technical term. But they're doing that, and I believe they're like, boom, boom. They're making that, following along with the throat sound too. So I just think that's cool when you get that Mongolian, traditional style music, and you bring in that culture, which that's what I'm talking about. Like nowadays, we don't do that.
Yeah.
We make things up, and I'm like, you need to have meaning, bro. Like, go back to your roots. Go find something. Go experience life. Like, go do other things because, my God, people, wake up. Wake up from Skynet, okay? Like, we need to get back to reality. Like, have meaning. Don't play these songs. Don't make up things that you're like, oh, hey, look at me. I'm drinking Mountain Dew. Like, I'm kidding, Greg, because I know he was drinking it, but it's like,
Didn't even put 2 and 2 together there.
But it's interesting because I just feel like music nowadays needs to go back to the roots of where like a lot of the, like if you think about a lot of music nowadays, I mean, blues was a big part of a lot of the musical genres, right? And so why can't you go back to that and maybe do stuff that is actually more meaningful? Right. So like when you're talking about the Hue, like they're going back to their roots. They're going back. They're using traditional instruments and they're making really cool music. Okay. So yes, the next instrument we have is the pedal harp. Is it just the pedal harp? Is that really what it's called?
Well, it's like grand harp, pedal
Oh,
harp.
okay,
I mean,
yeah.
they're kind of the same instrument, I guess. Pedal harp, grand harp. It's more of the like not the small, I guess, more handheld harps that you would generally see people have.
Or you're talking like the Greeks and like the little tiny ones that people would play or whatever.
Right.
Okay.
These would be the tall 6-7 foot harps that you would see, more or less in
Yeah. So
Opera.
yeah, like somebody
houses and-
sitting there, doing the the fluttering of the strings, I guess if you want to
Yeah.
call it like that. But yeah.
So the grand harp or pedal harp was created in the 17th, 18th century, and the more, I guess, pedal design of the harp itself wasn't created until the actual 1800s.
Hmm.
The pedal for the harp itself was essentially so that the harp could play all the major and minor keys. So that's what the pedals are for the harp itself. So when you have the harp, it'll have pedals for all the every key.
I didn't realize that's what those pedals were for. It's kind of
So,
cool.
so does it like play different notes? Is that what it like? You can do like different notes because based on the actual pedals itself. Is that what I'm?
Yes,
Okay.
and we'll get there.
Oh, sorry.
So just the general appearance. Generally, they stand at about 6 feet tall. They're about 4 feet deep and 21.5 inches wide at the base of the soundboard, and they weigh about 80 pounds.
You know, I don't even want to like because I remember like the old like cartoons, like you see like the grand pianos, and it's like I wouldn't imagine like trying to like carry this harp somewhere. Like, okay, where are we moving it to? Oh, it's
This thing, I don't think, was one of those instruments that you carry around.
Well, no, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is
Throw a strap on it like a guitar, walk around with it.
back. No, I feel like you literally have to be like, okay, you grab it, you drop it, you're basically not
Right.
gonna move that thing at
Yeah.
all. But it sucks because like let's say you move though, right? Or like let's say you move around, like it's not something you go like, oh, okay, hold on, guys, you gotta be careful now. Like,
I mean, unless you were really like that rich, I don't necessarily think you would have one of these in your house. Like you would see
yes,
these
true.
generally in like a place of music or a music hall or an opera house or somewhere.
I mean, well, if all right, I mean, if you do have like, let's say you are rich, right? You probably would have one area where you'd put like maybe a piano and a harp, and maybe put them somewhat close together to be able to do that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I just can't imagine picking that thing up though.
No, you definitely wouldn't.
Well, I've seen some before that are on like their own wheeled cart,
Oh, really?
so they can move around. It's almost it's like tailor made to the shape of this harp, and
Huh.
has locking wheels so it'll stay in place, and that's how they move it around is with one of those things.
I mean, that makes sense. I just, me personally, like,
There
why would
wouldn't
you
be
wanna-
any other way to move it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, there's
Yeah.
no way you could do that. Plus, why would you? No offense, like me personally, like, why would I want to? I mean, yes, you could go buy a custom made like little cart to move it around, but like, you're already probably paying thousands of dollars for this thing, and then now, okay, you know what? Sorry, I gotta go get a custom made cart to move this thing around anytime I
Yeah.
want to.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So the body of the harp consists of a straight pillar. Sometimes it's adorned with a crown at the top. I mean, it can be kind of designed however whoever makes it. I mean,
yeah.
some are customized. It depends on the maker. Um, the soundboard in most harps are pear shaped, and they have more width at the bottom that basically contains all the mechanisms for the pedals themselves.
I don't. So like, I've seen like an actual harp and things like that, but I don't think I've actually seen like it. I guess it just would be interesting to see like what exactly is in the actual mechanism that's like allowing it to do that. You know
So
what
the
I mean?
mechanical actions, it says it's made up of over 1,400 different parts.
I'm sorry. That's like it's like if you're like a clock maker or like something like I couldn't even imagine. Like, oh,
Yeah.
guess what my specialty is?
Hold on, I gotta call my harp mechanic.
Yeah, I'm like, wait a minute, let me go get my harp, maker or whatever. And like,
So there's 1,400 parts and the bass with the 7 pedals.
that's too intricate, man. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, I know there's a lot for like a clock, but that seems like a lot
Yeah.
for that
So
one thing.
and then it also has 7 strings per octave for a total of 47 strings, which gives it a range of about 6.5 octaves.
I mean, me just hearing that, I mean, that sounds like a lot, but I feel like you guys might explain this a little bit more.
Basically, it sounds like it's the Mariah Carey of instruments.
Oh, okay, that would make more sense. Yeah, so okay, yep, that would be oof. Okay,
Glass breaking to room shaking.
no, we're good. No, that's why I don't want to own one of these things. I'm just
Yeah.
no.
So The lowest strings are generally made of copper or steel, steel wound nylon, middle lower of catgut. Now they're not real catgut. That's just what they're called.
Oh, nickname. Okay.
They're typically they're made of like goats or other animals.
Oh, but you just
Not
so
from
hold on a second. So
not from cats, but they're made from like goats or other animals.
right. So, but no matter what, it's made from an animal, right?
Right.
Okay, that's all I wanted to make sure.
Yes. The middle to highest of nylon, although all the strings could be made of the gut.
No, like what? Why would anyone, in me personally, like that? This doesn't sound appealing. Like it's too heavy. It needs custom things. You need to have a harp maker apparently to fix it from time to time, and then
I believe the particular tone of the gut type strings is why they would choose gut over nylon or copper or steel wound.
because apparently your intestines of animals sound better than metal.
I mean, if they want to take some of mine, I wouldn't be upset.
I mean, shoot. I mean, if they were talking about like taking fat, I mean, like
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
there you go. Sure.
I
let's
don't
take
think
some
that
fat.
quite works the same.
Yeah, I know. I don't think it does either. But
Those would produce such a nice, warm, rich tone.
So the total tension on the strings on the soundboard is roughly a ton.
okay, again, this to me, why? Like, why? Just why?
I mean, just that one fact almost sounds Final Destination to me, but
Yeah.
No, well, that's what I'm saying. Like, why would I want to?
I mean,
buy
if
this
one of those
instrument?
were to break, it would.
Yep.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, no.
I've seen Ghost Ship. I know what happens when a cord snaps like that.
No, yep. I know what you're talking about. Yep.
So it does have 7 pedals, like I said before, one for each key. The pedals change the pitch of the strings to match the songs you're playing. So basically, what the pedals do is it changes the tension on the strings. So when you hit the pedal, it's essentially changing the tuning. So it's the mechanism is actually tensioning up the strings.
So right, making it loose, making it tighter, depending on what the range of what they want to have.
Right.
Something
So
like
if you're playing a song in the key of F, you're going to hit the F pedal and it's going to either tighten or loosen those strings. And all of those strings will be tuned to F. So you can.
you know, Matt, I feel like you'd be interested in trying this.
I think with 47 strings, this would not be. This would be an instrument that would take a great deal of time to learn.
Yeah.
And I know like it does say like that there is some sort of color coding when it comes to each octave of the string. So you will looking at the strings, like some are white, some will be different colorings. So you would know like which octaves you were kind of looking at. But when you're looking at 47 strings and you're looking at 7 pedals on the floor, it would be a very overwhelming instrument to really, really look at. And like learning, I taught myself how to play bass. I can't even play guitar that well. And that only has 6 strings.
So
47 strings to have to remember like what each string, like what octave each string is and like where I'm positioning and like what I'm actually playing.
that seems like it's a lifetime to master that one particular instrument. I mean, that again, there's nothing that you've said that makes me ever want to be like, you know what, I'm going to go learn the harp, or like want to do it.
It's certainly interesting to it's like and looking at like the what the mechanisms are and like hitting the pedals and like a tuning on that scale is amazing. And to have done that in the 17th century, 18th century is amazing.
Yeah.
Oh no, for the technology, absolutely. It's just to me, when you're talking about like who can afford these things, because I can't even.
Oh, I can tell you what the general cost is.
Okay, go ahead. What is the general cost of this thing?
A general cost for a grand harp, I would say brand new, if you were to go buy one right now,
God. Yep.
would range you about 20,000.
Okay, no. That's like literally a car. That's literally a car or two.
And
depending
you
on-
need a mechanic for both of them.
There
Yes.
there is one I looked up, like, what is the most expensive one,
Oh God.
and it's a Lewis, I believe it says the 11th, Louis the 11th special.
The Louis 11 special. Got it.
I'm gonna order that next time I go to the
Isn't
restaurant.
he? Oh wait, was he the one that got his head chopped off?
I think that was the 13th.
Oh, sorry. Okay, well, whatever. But go ahead.
But this Louis the 11th special is roughly $200,000, and that was only one of them. Most of them were 250, some were 300, some were 400.
Okay, so again, why? That's a house. It's like that's
It's
no.
this one's a special, like, collector's
Oh,
like
oh.
edition, kind of very, very collectors.
Oh, right, because
Yeah.
the fine art society of the world wants to collect a 200 and what was it, 240, 250 roughly?
But yeah, probably 200 to 250.
Okay, no. Like that's a house, man. I'm not buying a harp that's a house. Like no. But the problem with this instrument is it was the reason probably why too it wasn't as popular, like for households, right? Because it's not you can't one probably move it as much, right? But two, it's not meant for for the general like public to be like, oh, I'm gonna own a harp and call it a day. No, it was more for that modern like high
Yeah.
society, But you're right. I think the mechanism itself and like how like the tuning and everything else, that's why it reminded me of a clock because there's so many little like
Right.
intricate things that you need to do with it. So
Yeah.
it's like you might as well just say, hey, I know you do my clock, man, but can you look at my harp for me with the 1400 intricate things? But it's like, no, I just
It's a really interesting, instrument, and I think, like, yeah, you would not have one of these generally in your home, which makes it, it does make it very complicating, like, if you do play it, because, like, if you were gonna go and play this instrument, where are you gonna practice it? Like, you're gonna have to go to this music hall, and if you don't own the music hall, you're not getting in there until the night of your performance. So
yeah.
how are you practicing, you know? And that's where I think, with technology being where it's at today, I mean, in the 17th century, maybe that was different, but
Well, yeah.
technology being where it's at today, I wouldn't need to have a physical grand harp in my house to be able to play one.
Right. And I mean with like you're saying, like with computers and everything else, I mean they have generated things. Now granted, yes, and a lot of people are like, well, that's not the real thing. Well, unfortunately, with a lot of people, unless you have, let's say, thousands of dollars or equipment like what we have now or stuff like that, you can't it's hard to be like, you know what, I'm gonna go learn to play the guitar and like learn to do certain things because you need all these equipment. So like that's another alternative where, yeah, it's not the real thing, but I mean you can at least kind of learn maybe the chords. You can learn all that stuff so that when you do say let's play the guitar or bass or whatever, you at least have the understanding, right? So like that's the beauty of technology now is you can learn all these things even if you don't have the physical item and maybe you're
Yeah.
waiting to get it or something. You know what I mean? Because like that's the beauty of that. What I think of that.
Remote harping.
No, he's like, hold on. I don't even know. Oh, sorry. I don't even know how. Like I know how it sounds in my head, but like I'm not gonna repeat it. Like I don't really know how like it would
Yeah.
sound like. But
It is a really amazing instrument to hear. And again, like the Chapman stick, like YouTube grand harp, it's just an amazing instrument to hear. It's not one of those, like, you're not going to hear it in today's music
I, I mean,
unless somebody does like an orchestral
Yeah.
or it's not something like that, but it's not, it's not really mainstream, music nowadays, but it's a really interesting sounding instrument, and it's when you hear somebody who can really play it good, like, it's I think, to me, it's like really relaxing to hear.
Well, it's relaxing. It's beautiful. Like it's very melodic. It just really kind of. It's almost like Zen. Like you just sit there and you're like, you're just kind of like relaxed. There's not like a whole lot going on. It's not like you're playing it like, like it's
Yeah.
like loud and it's
Yeah,
right
but
in your
that'd be
face.
awesome, though. Distorted overdrive harp.
Distorted, overdriven.
You're like, whoa,
grand
what is
harp.
going on with this? Wait.
Metal harp.
You should patent the idea, Greg. Get it going, but-
Right? I had to learn how to play one
I mean,
first.
yeah, and you also what? Was it 20,000? Right, you have to get 20,000.
Yeah, that's all.
Yeah,
That's all.
Yeah,
It's just
20,000.
$20,000.
No big deal.
No And by the way, you also got to get a custom-made cart,
Oh,
just
yeah.
specifically so you can.
And I got to hire the mechanic.
Yeah, exactly. So it sounds like you got a lot of work on your hands.
Yeah. I'll work some weekends.
Yeah. So, all right. What else do we got, Matt? Because I feel like we got maybe one more thing. Yep.
I mean, there's really not much. I mean, I don't have any more instruments on the docket for me to talk about, but I know, we kind of briefly touched on, how, technology has changed, in the process of making music. And I think, you think of, I mean, most of the, stuff that you mentioned at the start of the show that you listen to, I mean, most of those are created with electronic instruments using samples and different things. And, some of the various, instruments that we use in today's music, like are, electronic flutes and electronic woodwind instruments that can literally sound like any kind of an instrument.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not discrediting the whole, the electronic based, like, wood instruments or like the wind and everything else, but like technology has come to the point where, I hate saying this, but like when we always mention like GarageBand and things like that, you can literally put in, sounds of like guitars and things like that. Now, granted, it's not the same thing. It's not the true genuine sound of what the actual instrument makes, but I do find it interesting that you can have, I think when we were talking about before the episode, the actual flute being, like basically the body of it, but then you're just like, you're pressing it like almost, yeah, it's like Guitar Hero, I guess, in some respects, but like you're doing it, but it does like actually sound like it, which is interesting because then you really like, unfortunately with the instruments in general, you really don't need them anymore. Like you really don't need to have a flute or a bassoon or or trumpet or whatever, right? Because there is always these sounds that we can recreate.
And I mean, as great as it sounds, like nothing beats like the sound of like a real trumpet or a real saxophone or a real flute. But with like the technology always improving, these instrument sounds are getting better and better. And yeah, you could have a band that is using one of these, and I've been part of a worship teams that have used these electronic, woodwind instruments, and the individual that was playing it would play a flute in one song and play something else in another. And generally, like you wouldn't ever see something like that occur because if somebody plays a flute, they're playing a flute.
Well,
That's
yeah,
it.
right. Because you can't
That's
change
it.
it. Yeah.
So, it's interesting on that front where you can have somebody play multiple instruments on the fly and not have to worry about having multiple people bring those instruments. You literally can just have one person and you have that, which is
Right.
It's a cool thing, and they're making new things all the time. Like I saw more of an ad, but they're making synth guitars
Yeah.
where there's not even strings on it. The whole neck is touchpads, and you would strum like you strum a guitar, or you can use your fingers. But you can make synth sounds. You can do dubstep on this thing.
What?
You can use it to actually play guitar. And your fingers, when you put it in like chord patterns, will play that chord. Like,
so there's no tuning.
there's no tuning, there's no strings, there's no nothing. It's the whole neck is just a touchpad.
So then how would you?
It's a MIDI instrument, so it's all programmed onto the guitar
Okay,
itself.
so you would have to go into the program and like change certain tuning in the. Okay, yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, so you would have to go into the guitar and program the guitar of what sounds like you want.
See, that
it.
is nerdy. Like that is like a whole nother level of music, and then like adding the technical aspect in the technology. Like that is interesting, but it sucks because you have to be both to be able to even go into that realm. But I mean,
Most musicians, you do have to be, you know, I would say most, if not all, are both geeky and nerdy because you have to be both.
yeah, I mean, because you need to have that technical aspect, and then you also need to understand, like, yes, you have to have the passion of playing that particular instrument and so on and so forth, like that.
Yeah.
But
Well, so it's funny you're talking about how the technology is changing and everything like that. So we've come a long way from where digital and electronic technology started. I just found out this little tidbit. Did you ever hear the movie Flight of the Navigator?
Yeah.
I understand. Maybe you have, but maybe I haven't. So you
True.
can explain
So
this. But
so you've heard of it.
I've heard of it, yes.
Well, the music in it, that was the first movie to incorporate strictly synthesized music.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you figure that paved the way. I mean, if you've watched Stranger Things, that's pretty much all the music in that is the
Yeah.
same style. But yeah, this movie from 1986, they were totally flexing on how, how they were doing things with synthesizers. They were just like, hey, watch what we can do. And they made a full movie score with just synthesizers.
Wow.
And then you think about how far we've come now. Now you could listen to a CD. Somebody could be playing digital digital instruments, and you wouldn't know it.
No, and that's the part where I feel like when you say, "Oh yeah, I'm playing a real instrument," okay, somebody's on like let's say a concert tour or whatever, and they're like, "Okay, go ahead and play that guitar," and you're like, "Uh." A G, like they froze up. But
Right.
it's interesting because like you're right. If you had like that synthesizer, if you had, that like that new guitar like that allows you to do that. I mean, you could be like, hey, don't worry, man. I could be like Led Zeppelin or I could be Jimi Hendrix in like 2 seconds. Like no problem. Like wait a minute. Like no, that you're going on another level, and they only had those instruments to play. Like they didn't have like what we have now, right? So they're playing with that. So it's like, I don't think you're going to say like some of the greats are better than, or sorry, let me rephrase that. The synthesized music that we're playing now is not better than the originals. Like I would love to hear an original, band or something like that actually play their own music instead of like, okay, hold on, man, ding ding, ding, like and like just do it from there.
Push
Yeah.
a button.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
that's
like,
even. I
like,
mean, that's even. I mean, you even look at some of the newer guitar amps and stuff that we're using now, compared to the
well, like 70s, 80s, depending on.
the 70s guitar amps, like the tube amps
Oh yeah.
from like the 60s and 70s, completely different tones.
Yeah.
And you can try to replicate them all you want. You're never gonna get like that pure sound that is gonna mimic those.
Unless you get one, which probably is hard to find, but yeah.
With technology improving, yes, you may get better, and arguably with AI, maybe you can get closer, but it's still, it's not going to be a perfect system, but
Like now that you
it
mention
gets
that,
better.
I did see something recently that there was a lot of it was like Facebook, TikTok, I don't know, one of those things, but it was showing like different artists like an AI version of like a different artist playing like a certain I don't know. I'm just going to throw a random name like Michael Jackson or something like that. Like so like the songs that they were playing like they're doing it in their own voice, but really it's AI creating that version of that song with this other person. So let's say Usher, I don't know, or someone random, right? Just like, but using their voice to do that song, and they're not actually singing it, but it's the AI doing it. And I was like, it's scary. Like it's almost like music nowadays doesn't even have to be the original person.
No.
You can literally recreate, like once you have that sample, it's like you can steal someone's music and not, you know what I mean? And it's scary like that because you don't have to do anything.
I actually saw a different article, and I believe it was Paul McCartney saying that they used AI to recreate John Lennon's voice in their last album.
What?
I read a thing too that said that there's about to be a brand new AI generated Beatles album with all brand new songs.
Yeah,
What?
and that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. Like they used AI to recreate John Lennon's voice
Yep.
for that album.
I don't want so, but that's what I'm saying. Like, I understand it's great to be able to do that, like recreate maybe like certain voices, certain things like that. But now you're going into another realm of like, this is like legal issues on so much. Like, Paul McCartney could literally sue these guys to do this because
Well, I mean, I think Paul McCartney is the one.
oh,
I
is he
mean,
the one that promoting it?
they're putting it out, but it's another one of those things. Like, are they going to be able to use that AI voice if they were to go like on tour, or if they ever do go on tour?
Right.
Like,
It's crazy though. Like it's great that you could recreate voices and like certain sounds and certain things like that, but it goes into another realm that I don't think that we're ready to
it
see
opens
yet.
the door of like, should we use AI
Yeah.
for that purpose?
Well, I don't know, Matt.
Probably not. But
Skynet. It's like,
I was thinking
should
it.
we say Skynet?
I was thinking it.
It sounds like Skynet is the end all be all. Like that's what we should just head to now. Is that what we're saying?
I feel like I feel like we've maybe like taken the idea of Skynet and then we're just using it to create music and write books.
Oh, wait. Wasn't there a news article we talked about where it was? Oh yeah, it was the writer strike.
The writer strike.
Yeah, and how AI is now being replacing them for getting their jobs for like scripts and stuff. So
Yeah.
like, there's an actual app that you can use to like have like scripts and other ideas. And so the writers were getting so upset that, ooh, we can just use what was it, Chat GPT, right?
Yeah,
I think is what it is.
that's the main one. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's that same idea where
They want to be able to. I mean, their whole argument is they don't want to be replaced by AI, but they want to use AI to still create their ideas.
right, even though we both said, well, why don't you stop being lazy and just do your job?
Yeah.
But-
Why don't you use your?
You know.
Why don't you use your imagination?
Imagination. Use your noggin. You know, that's a concept. But no, and I think you're right. I think AI, where we're going now, it's like you said, it's becoming scary. Like we're getting to a point where do we cross the line or do we
It's
just not do it?
it's going to a weird place where like we're using AI because we don't want to actually do anything. We want AI to do everything else for us. And that's I mean, you look at the Matrix and you look at unfortunately you look at Terminator and that's exactly where they ended up. But you know, we don't want to write our own music. Let's use AI. We don't want to write our own books. Let's use AI. I'm going to college.
Let's use AI.
But no, but that's what students
no,
are
no.
doing. I don't want to write my own essays.
Use AI.
I'm going to use AI.
Well, hold on. I'm going to college right now, and I can tell you right now,
You're using AI.
I'm not using AI. No, I'm not using AI. Actually, I'm taking the time to actually write this stuff out. I don't really want to be in college anymore. But I think what you're trying to say is that, we're using technology way too much to
Yes.
the point of we're becoming lazy ourselves, and we need to go back to the basics, right? Because if we don't learn, right? Because all I think about is Wally.
Wally.
Wally, where they're all lazy fat humans and they're all like roly poly olies and they're just like walking around.
Or Idiocracy,
Yeah. Yes, that one too.
where they use Gatorade to water the garden.
Yeah, they said it's electrolytes.
It has electrolytes, John.
So, but I agree. It's one of those things that I'm like, why can't we go back to the basics? Like, why are we making it? We're making it too easy, which that's helpful in some areas, but we do need to remember that the basics are always where we need to be. It does not need to go any further than that. If we go into the Skynet thing, man,
It's all fun and games until Skynet happens.
that's true. We don't need to go Skynet mode. Wow.
All right. Well, I guess that's it.
Yeah.
So we do thank you all for joining us. If you do us a favor, whether you're on Spotify or Apple, just give us a rating. If you are on Apple, give us a review. It goes a long way to, let us know how you're feeling about our show. Apple, you can give us the review. On Spotify, you can only do the rating, which is the stars. But it does give us an idea of how you guys are feeling about our show. So if you want to go ahead and give us a positive rating, that'd be great. We would definitely appreciate that. And of course, we will be back next week with a brand new episode. And until then,
Stay geeky.